Hey guys, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I wanted to do a video specifically dedicated to books that take place in New York. It might seem kind of random to do a video like this, but I was actually requested to make this video, and since I visited New York earlier this month, I've really been wanting to talk about New York still, and it's just my favorite place in the whole world. I don't know, I feel like books that take place in New York, like that's something that'll make me love the book even more. And so I thought maybe there are other humans out there who also really love books that take place in New York City or just New York in general, and they need some recommendations of like good books that take place in New York, you know? So I compiled a list of all of my favorite books that take place in New York. Hopefully I'm not forgetting any. I mean, I just kind of threw this together. And if you like this kind of video of like just a video dedicated to books that take place in a specific place, then like let me know what you think, because I might be able to do like another kind of video, like maybe like books set in California or like things like that, you know? I don't know. Anyways, let's get right to it. So the very first book that I'm gonna mention is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book takes place mostly in New York. It also takes place in a few different areas, but it's mostly in New York, and it's mainly following this character Jude and his closest three friends. And it's on the back, it even says, as they move to New York in search of fame and fortune. And his friend Willem in this book is an actor, and this book is even known for Lispinard Street. I think that's how you say it, Lispinard Street. That's even like a touristy thing to go and see the street that like Jude and Willem and all their friends lived on in this book in New York. I didn't actually get to go and see the street when I was in New York, but apparently it's like a tourist attraction thing to do if you're like a huge fan of this book, which is just so cool. This book has hella New York vibes, and maybe that's part of the reason why I just absolutely love it so much. One of my personal favorite new adult romances that takes place in New York is The Butterfly Project by Emma Scott, because this one follows this girl Zelda who has moved to New York from Phoenix, Arizona, I'm pretty sure, and she is living in New York City, and she's writing these graphic novels that are like inspired by her true life, because she's writing graphic novels about a superhero who prevents child predators from being out there, and her sister was like abducted and killed by this child predator when she was a little girl. She's doing that, and then she gets involved in this romance with this guy that's from New York, and he's lived in New York his whole life, and he's actually a criminal, and he has recently gotten out of prison, and it's just the most beautiful freaking love story ever. And this one has like hella New York vibes. Like, it just gives me all of the New York vibes, and this one might be the most New York vibes on this whole list. It's just so great, and Zelda and Beckett are like two of my favorite characters ever, maybe. Another one that takes place in New York is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This one actually follows from the point of view of this girl who's from Jamaica, and her whole family's from Jamaica, and they're getting deported from the United States on this day that the book takes place on. And then we meet Daniel, who is her love interest in this book, and he is this young Korean boy, and he is a poet and she is a scientist. Yeah, this book is really good. It's so much better than the movie. Like, the movie was not that great in my opinion, but this book is freaking great. This book is kind of like insta-love, which is why I'm surprised that I like it so much, because it all takes place on one day, but it's also just like really cute, and I love the way that this book is written and the New York vibes. Another one that takes place in New York is Ask Again Yes by Mary Beth Keane. This one actually takes place in Brooklyn, I want to say. It follows two rookie cops who are in the NYPD, and they live really close to each other outside of the city. I'm pretty sure it's in Brooklyn. This story is actually like a really moving, dramatic family story. I feel like this one's more like literary fiction, and it follows these two rookie cops like very young in their career all the way through like the rest of their lives, kind of. This book deals a lot with like mental illness and mental health issues, and I feel like this book just handles those issues very sensitively, but it's also just really fascinating. This one has like very low New York vibes, but I feel like I have to mention it because it follows two rookie cops working in the NYPD, and I'm pretty sure it takes place in Brooklyn. So yeah, this book is great. It's like one of my favorites of the year so far. I just really enjoyed this one. Another young adult contemporary that takes place in New York is Skyscraping by Cordelia Jensen. It even has this very beautiful New York-esque cover with the Empire State Building in the back over here, and this is like one of my favorite book covers of all time. Like, wow, that is beautiful. This book takes place in 1993 in New York City, and it follows this girl who's in her senior year of high school. She finds out that her dad is gay, and it's kind of like a really beautiful story about her family, and it's a coming of age story, and this book is actually told in verse, and it's just really, really beautiful. Like, I love the way that this book is written, and I read this book a couple of years ago actually, but I just remember really, really loving it. It was a 5-star book for me. Like, I just really, really love the writing style of this and the way it talks about like the universe, and it's just like worded so beautifully. So this one was one of my favorites back in the day. So another romance that takes place in New York City that I absolutely freaking love is The Light We Lost by Jill Santopolo. And this one is a romance that follows these two characters, Lucy and Gabe, and they meet in college, and I'm pretty sure they have their first kiss on the day of 9/11 or something crazy like that. Like, 9/11 is a huge part of the story, like right in the beginning. It kind of like spans years and years of their lives. He ends up pursuing a career like in the Middle East after 9/11 happens, and then she pursues a career in New York City. So she's in New York and he's gone, and it's like the light we lost. It's like that second chance, like they just want to be together, and like it's just so hard for them. And this book made me cry like a little bitch. Like, this is one of those books that have made me cry so much. Love this book so much. I love the New York vibes in this, and I love this cover too. It even has like the little Brooklyn Bridge in the background, like you can see it, and it's beautiful. Another one of my favorite romances that takes place in New York is Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. And this one actually follows these two college students who are both in the dorms at NYU. So he's working to become a photographer for National Geographic, like that's what he wants to do. And then she is a celloist, and then this book is kind of like their second chance at love. So like we're following them when they're in college at NYU, and then we're also simultaneously in alternating chapters following them like 15 years later when they're strangers and they have no longer been speaking to each other, and you're trying to figure out like why and kind of what happened between them, and it's just beautiful. I really, really want to reread this book actually, because I just loved it so freaking much when I read this, and it's been a while since I've read this, and I just remember the New York vibes. Like, they see each other again for the first time when they're on a subway and the doors like close and they're like, no. It's like, it's classic stuff, you know, like it's just really, really great. I just loved it so much. This next one is kind of like a romantic thriller that takes place in New York, and that is He Will Be My Ruin by K.A. Tucker. Follows this girl who finds out that her best friend committed suicide, but she believes that her best friend did not commit suicide and that there was something shady going on. So she goes to her apartment that's in Manhattan, and she gets involved with this guy that was like in her friend's past, and then she also gets involved with the building's super. It's kind of like a love triangle, but it's also like thriller vibes, and it's all like in New York City. It's just freaking great. Like, this was another 5-star book for me. Like, I absolutely loved it. The last 4 that I have are actually all thrillers. So the first one is going to be You by Caroline Kepnes. This one is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. It follows this guy, Joe Goldberg, who owns a bookstore in New York City, and he starts stalking this girl named Beck when she comes in one day, and she gives him the credit card to pay, and he like reads her name, and then he looks her up, and you probably know the story because the TV show is so popular now, but this is one of my favorite thriller novels of all time, and I love the New York vibes in this book. Owning a bookstore in New York City is like the biggest goals that I could ever have in life. So, I mean, Joe Goldberg is winning. Another one that takes place in New York is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan. So this one mainly follows this girl named Jessica, who's a makeup artist, and she gets involved in this psychological study that this psychologist lady is doing. It's all these like moral questions about like, what would you do? And I just remember there being so many scenes of her being like out in the city, and it was very like atmospheric of New York in this book. But this one was really good. I know a lot of people like don't really like this book for some reason, but this was a 5-star book for me. Like, I absolutely loved it. The next one is going to be The Arrangement by Robin Harding, and this is one that I wasn't like a huge fan of, but the New York vibes in this book are so real, because I believe that this one is also about a student who goes to NYU, I'm pretty sure, or she's like a college student somewhere in New York. I think it's NYU though. And then she's actually from Blaine, Washington, which is crazy because like I live in Washington and I live like relatively close to Blaine, so it's like so crazy that not only is it about like my favorite place, New York, but it also talks about somewhere close to where I actually live in Washington. Like, that's crazy. This book is a thriller. It's about this girl, Natalie, who gets a sugar daddy. Like, that's like the main premise of this book. But yeah, the New York vibes in this book are pretty great. And then the last one that I have is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, because this one takes place in this fictional building in New York called the Bartholomew. It's Manhattan's most glamorous and secretive building, and I love this book too because like it's about this girl who she's gonna get paid to live in this building, which also is kind of like shady and whatever, and there's like a history that this building has that it's like cursed and shit. And I think because this book takes place in New York, it just made me love it even more because our main character would like go down to Central Park and like meet people in Central Park and like just all the New York things, you know. It's just very atmospheric of New York, to me at least. And yeah, this is one of my favorite thrillers of the year and of all time, and I absolutely love it so much, and I highly recommend it, and it's very New Yorkish. It's just a bonus on top of that. I did want to mention one other book that's on my TBR that I like need to get to immediately, and that's City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. This one takes place in like old New York, like in the 1940s or 50s or something. It's like about this girl that's like working in the theater scene and stuff, and like Broadway and stuff, so I have a feeling this is going to be the most New York vibes book out of all of these, and I just need to read it still. So I haven't quite gone to this one yet, but I know like people are probably going to recommend me this one, and like I know it's like probably going to be the most New York book ever, so I just need to read it. I just need to read it. It's gonna happen before the end of the year, okay? I promise it will happen. All right, so those are all the books I have that are set in New York, at least all the ones that I can think of where like New York actually felt like a part of the story, you know, like the book felt atmospheric of New York enough for me to remember it at least. If you have any book recommendations of awesome books that take place in New York, then like please let me know, because obviously I seek out books that take place in New York. Like it's just something I really enjoy reading. It makes me feel like I'm there, I guess. Thanks so much for watching, and please let me know like if you would like to see a video like this in the future for like books set in Los Angeles or books set in California, because I could do something like that too with like different cities if that interests you, or different states or different countries or whatever. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.